Good morning. So I don't, you guys, okay, I'm a hot mess because of this. Okay, so here's what happened. So, as Pastor Janie said, Josh is in Israel for almost 2 weeks, 12 days. So I've been, and then you guys know that we got flooded, our house flooded at the beginning of summer, so in a rental. So there's just a lot of moving parts right now. And then our cars broke down this past week, so I'm trying to get Sophia to school, get the cars in, and, do all that fun stuff. Well, so this morning, I just want to applaud all the single parents here, too. If you're a single parent, wow. At least I can look ahead to, Wednesday and say, okay, Josh can help a sister out when he gets back. But I applaud single parents. I grew up with a single parent. When I was younger, growing up, my parents were split. My mom kind of took care of my sister and I, and it's a lot of work, and I don't do it well. Okay, so I forgot this morning. I tried to make sure Sophia had something to eat, and then I was like, oh, I forgot to eat. So between the two services, I was like, because I like protein and eggs can get kind of boring, so I'm like, I'm going to stick some chicken nuggets in the microwave. So I had an poop moment because I was like, what? Why is there smoke in the kitchen? Oh my gosh, that's my smoke. I had put the chicken nuggets in too long and they caught on fire in the kitchen. So I apologize. So even if my sermon's not on fire, at least my chicken nuggets are. Boom, ba-doom, boom. So I apologize about the smoke, so just bear with us as we try and get the place aired out. And we'll be handing out free bottles of Febreze as you exit. So we were supposed to start last week on this series of Deborah, but this week we're going to start because we had a chance to have Nina Landis as our guest speaker. That's a great opportunity. So this is going to be a 3-part series on Deborah. And let me just say this, and I didn't get to mention it last service, but we didn't pick Deborah because we have a feminist agenda here. Okay, in the body of Christ, it's all hands on deck. So we picked Deborah because she's a great leader. She did stuff. I don't. If you guys, how many of you guys have ever read the book of Judges? Anybody? If you had to describe it in one word, it'd be hot mess. Just like I'm a hot mess this morning because of the chicken nugget debacle. It is filled with, Samson. Let's just talk about Samson for a second. We have little ears in here. I don't know how to say this. Okay, so I'm not. So he got a lot of experience in with the women. Let's put it that way. Okay, and then he killed lots of people. And he was one of the judges of Israel, right? That's kind of, you're just like, why? Why was this guy one of the judges? Okay, but then we come to Deborah, and there are other good judges. Deborah was, so this is the game plan for today. We're going to get the 10,000-foot view of Deborah and judges, because in order to fully appreciate Deborah and what she did, we need to know the context of what was going on with the Israelites, with the Canaanites and all that stuff, and the other ites, okay? So, and I think to just grasp, and what I love about the story of Deborah, there's no introduction for her. There's no qualification for her, even though she is unusual. She is a female judge in a patriarchal society. Not only was Israel patriarchal, the whole ancient Near Eastern culture was patriarchal. And yet Deborah is just, God picks her, she's anointed, she steps up and she's doing her thing. She's already doing her thing by the time we come across her. So that's why we picked her. She's a person, a character, she does amazing things, and she also happens to be a chick, so that's cool too. All right, so God rescues the Israelite, brings them out of Egypt. Do you remember that? And then he takes them through the desert. And they're only supposed to wander for a few days, right? A few days turns into a few weeks turns into a few years, and before you know it, it's 40 years, okay? So then Moses dies, remember? And Do you guys remember who the next leader was after Moses? Joshua. Joshua gets called up, right? He gets raised up in leadership. And so Joshua is leading the people, and then Joshua dies. So at this point, and up to this point, Israel had been something called a theocracy. Okay, that means they're just led by God, which is unusual because all the other, in that culture, in that day and age, like you were led by a leader, a human being. And up to this point, Israel had just been kind of a collection of the 12 tribes, okay? So when Joshua dies, there's kind of no heir apparent, so to speak. And so God kind of, the humans too were like, well, everybody else has a king. We want a king too. We want a leader. And so God kind of works out this compromise with the Israelites. So they get judges, okay? Judges were kind of de facto leaders in a sense, and they were very practical. If you had a land dispute or somebody stole your goat, your neighbor, you could go before the judge and just kind of hash it out a little bit. So Deborah is one of these. But like I said, before we get into it, I want to look at what's going on. Okay, so here's the deal. So the Israelites, they start in stepping into the promised land, all right? And of course, because God is like this and he's interested in our character growth, he doesn't just hand the promised land on a silver platter to the Israelites. He's like, I will go before you and I will lead the charge, but you're gonna have to charge. You're gonna have to do some of this work. And so the Israelites are like, okay, so they, and God also calls the Israelites to be a set apart people. All the way back, and this was interesting, and I think we need to get this. There were no Jews before God called Abraham. God created the nation of Israel. God created the Jews, which is interesting. But he calls Abraham. Abraham responds to the call. So this is a promise that God made generations ago. He's like, you guys are going to be your own people, and you're going to occupy this land. But part of it was like a marriage contract between God and the Israelites. And he's like, I need you, though, to live differently, to live separately, and to uphold me and what I'm about. You were to be a sanctified people, a set-apart people, okay? So they're like, okay, we'll take it. Okay, so the book of Judges, though, gives us a snapshot. They keep going back and forth. They live as set apart for a little bit, and then the grass looks greener on this side. And then they get, judge rises up, and then they get called back. They straighten out for a little bit, and they just keep going back and forth. Kind of like what they did in the desert. They spent so much time doing this when they should have done a straight line. Okay, so God in his graciousness is like, all right, I'll work with you guys. We'll keep at it. We'll keep at it. We'll keep at it. All right, so let us read, turn in your Bible to Judges 2:16 through 23. This kind of gives probably a better synopsis than what I'm providing. And I think we should have it up on the screen too. Okay, so Judges 2:16. Then the Lord raised up judges who saved them out of the hands of these raiders. Yet they would not listen to their judges, but prostituted. That's a pretty harsh word, but this is what they were doing. They kept stepping out of their marriage covenant with God, and they refused to live set apart to God. But prostituted themselves to other gods and worshiped them. They quickly turned from the ways of their ancestors who had been obedient to the Lord's commands. Verse 18. Whenever the Lord raised up a judge for them, he was with the judge and saved them out of the hands of their enemies as long as the judge lived. For the Lord relented because of their groaning under those who had oppressed and afflicted them. Okay, real quick. So what's interesting is the Israelites, right? They're miserable. How many of you guys have ever seen, it's old school, but the old school movie with Charlton Heston playing Moses? Yeah, okay. And then they've done newer, modern reiterations of that, right? Like slavery, no matter how you cut it, is horrible. And the Israelites were a part of that. They're under that heavy hand of Egypt, right? And then God's like, I got you guys. Time's up. I'm going to break you out of jail. You're not going to be slaves anymore, right? So they get broken out of jail, and they wander through the desert, okay? And what's fascinating is it's like they become content to just not be in slavery anymore. You understand what I'm saying? But they're not realizing that God has so much more for them. He's like, you're not just not slaves. You're my children. You're my set-apart people. But they're so content with just not being slaves anymore. So they get like sidelined. And I think often in life, I know in my personal life, and especially with this week, I'll share a little story with you guys that I titled Poop Again. I shared during first service. It just seems like this week, everything, the last 2 weeks, like everything has just gone awry. But, you know, and I think us in our lives, I felt like throwing in the towel this week. So for starters, for one thing, I told you about the cars. Both cars kind of pooped out. And so I was like taking in both cars to get them fixed so we could have transportation. And then one morning I woke up and I hadn't even like gotten my coffee yet or used the restroom. And I come out and the back half of our living room has got an oval of poop. There's just this giant circle of poop. One of our dogs had decided he couldn't wait to go out in the morning and he had to do it right then and there. And I was just beside myself. Because I'm already at the edge. I'm like already stressed out. And so I start cleaning it up, right? I'm like, okay, I can still do this. I got this. I get some cups of coffee and I'm sipping it down. And I'm like cleaning up the poop. And I'm putting it in this trash bag. Well, we have a cat who just cannot stay out of plastic bags. Like he's got to investigate every bag, every plastic bag. So Bruce, his name's Bruce. So Bruce starts to go into the bag and with the poop in it, and I holler at him. I'm like, Bruce, no. So he scatters off. And I go into the kitchen to get more Clorox wipes and paper towels. This time when I come back, Bruce is fully in the bag. And I'm like, nope. And I grab him, and he's got poop on his front paws. And I lost it. Talk about the poop hitting the fan. I was just like, ah. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, I should probably get him cleaned up so he doesn't run around the house and track poop everywhere. But I still got to get this poop cleaned up. So I'm just like, and then on top of it, Sophia, who's had some health issues and like autoimmune issues with her legs, she's not walking too well. She had a really high pain week this week. So she was just not in a good place either. So it was just all this stuff. And then we were having issues with our house, with insurance stuff, getting it fixed after the flood. And I kind of was like, God, I am barely functioning right now. And my husband's in Israel having a great time. He's not having to clean up dog poop. And I was just like, I just want to give up. I want to quit. And I think, like the Israelites, maybe, we look at what's in front of us. We look at the poop mess, the broken down cars, whatever it is. And this is not to belittle life or the curveballs that life throws us, because I know a lot of you guys are walking through some tough stuff. Rough diagnoses, you've lost your job maybe, someone that you love, marriages aren't going so well. But I felt like when I was sitting there, I was like, God, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. Everybody else seems to have a great life. Why can't I have this? I want this. Instead, my cat's walking in poop, and there's poop all over, And I felt like God was like, don't give up. And you know I am faithful, Mako. You know I have stuck with you, and I have never deserted you. So finish picking up the poop. And I think in life, that's what we have to do. We have to go back to sometimes cleaning up messes that aren't fun. We don't want to, and it's the last thing that we want to do because we have zero bandwidth. But God's like, get back in there and keep doing what you need to do. Do it. So I did that. And I just felt like And I was just like, God, I'm just so flat. I'm puttered out. I have no gas in my tank. And I feel like God was like, Mako, this isn't your life. This isn't what I've promised you. You know what I've promised you as a daughter of the Most High King. So that encouraged me the rest of the week. And I feel like with the Israelites, God's got this great promise, right? But we let what we're living in currently stop us from moving forward. How many of you guys have heard of somebody named David Goggins? Anybody? No? Okay. If you go listen to him, this is my disclaimer. This man swears like a truck driver. No offense against truck drivers, but he swears a lot. So if you go listen to him, just be warned. However, his story is so profound and so amazing. His dad was a pimp, beat his mom, beat him and his brother, and he went on to become, he was an exterminator. And he had this moment where he was doing extermination, and he came into this one restaurant, and he hit a wall that had a ton of roaches, and they just kind of came out and swarmed on him. And he was like, what am I doing with my life? And so he decided that he didn't want that anymore. And so he started this journey. He became like a Navy SEAL. He was 300 pounds too. He was a big guy. He was just like, he got himself in shape. He went through Hell Week 3 times. And you just listen to him talk. And it's like, what motivated this person? And everybody was like, you're going nowhere. You're a loser. You've got nothing to offer life. You're just sucking up space on the planet. And he did, and here's the kicker, he believes in God. But he said, I just decided I had to deal with my own stuff. And I had to keep going. Nobody was going to make me do anything. I had to pick up my own stuff and keep going. And I think we lose sight. And he's crazy, though. Like, not everybody's in this class. Because he had gone through, what's it called, boot camp 3 times? Or Hell Week 3 times, or whatever, for the Marines. It was a Marine Corps. He had, his bones were broken, and his shins and his feet were broken. But this was his 3rd and last time to go through the training. So he got duct tape, and he duct taped his legs up, and that's how he did it. That's how he got it done. And he's crazy, and he's on another level. But he just said, I just decided at a certain point, I had to just dig in and keep moving forward. I couldn't stop. And I think that has so much application for us as believers and as just people living on earth. Things get overwhelming, and we want to throw the towel in, even when we're doing all the right stuff, right? We're trying to do all the right stuff, get our ducks in a row, be responsible. And it's like we just keep getting hit with wave after wave after wave. But God says, don't quit, don't give up. Because we think that's it. We're like, okay, I guess I'm going to heaven, that's good enough. And God's like, don't be content with just being not slaves. I have so much more for you in store. So the other part of this story, too, is that in God calling the Israelites and making them set apart, right? He's like, don't co-marry with the Canaanites. Don't adopt what they do, their lifestyle, how they do things. He's like, you need to drive them out from the land. And I believe it was both a physical driving out, but it was also a spiritual. There was like, the Israelites needed to move into the promised land and take possession of it. Part of what made the Canaanites they were evil people. They didn't have a regard for human life. They were so the land that they tended, that was supposed, that the Israelites were going to come in, was very fertile. Very fertile. It was so fertile you could just drop a seed and you didn't have to worry about it. It would just grow. And so that became part of their cosmology, how they viewed the world. So they became very keen on fertility. worship and fertility rites because they're like, we got to keep the ground fertile. So what that led them to do is that led them into child sacrifice and fertility rites, sexual fertility rites. And unfortunately, the Israelites didn't heed what God said, so they were like, well, I guess if it works for the Canaanites, we should give it a go. And so God set apart people, got into covenant with the Canaanites. And God knew that his people were going to get tainted. It's like if you put salt water in fresh water. The fresh water doesn't make the salt water not salty. The salt water makes the fresh water salty. And God knew that about the Israelites. He's like, this is non-negotiable. You need to drive them out. And I think it broke God's heart because his vision for his people was so much more than what they were doing. They were called to be, to use our vernacular, they were called to be the salt and the light. Most of the ancient Near Eastern culture, and ancient Near Eastern and the ancient culture, there was no light. And God's like, I'm going to raise up my people to be light and salt and hope. And the Israelites ended up getting tainted. And I think, it does. It makes God mad, but it also breaks his heart. Because he was like, I was going to use you as instruments of light and to bring hope. And that's not happening. Okay, so that's the giant overview. I also want to give you a quick breakdown. Let's look at Judges 4. Okay, so Deborah pops up. So this is the context. Deborah walks in. She's one of the judges. She's already doing her thing. Can we get it up on the screen too? Okay, so turn to Judges 4. There's Judges 4 and Judges 5, which are both, they concern Deborah, okay? Judges 4 is kind of like the historical account of the story. And then 5 is her account. It's called Deborah's Song. It's kind of in poetry, okay? So we're just going to read a little bit of this. So Judges 4:1. Again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, now that Ehud was dead. This is a refrain that we see over and over and over in Judges. They would get it right, and then they would go back. They'd get it right, and then they would go back. They just kept tripping up. All right, so Judges 4:2. So the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, king of Canaan, who reigned in Hazor. Sisera, the commander of his army, was based in Harosheth Hagoyim. Okay, nobody asked me later to pronounce that. Okay, so here's the deal. So you have the Israelites, right? So Deborah, for all intents and purposes, at this point, is like their queen. Her military commander is a man named Barak, okay? On the Canaanite side, you have this king, and his military commander, his name is Sisera, okay? Sisera was a ruthless guy. Not only that, he had an army of 900 iron chariots. The Israelites are able to call up 10,000 men to fight. Okay, so not only do the Canaanites have iron chariots, they also have 100,000 men to fight. And so this is the situation that is laid before Deborah's feet. And she's trying to recall, God's like, you are called to come in this land and conquer it. This is the promise. I'm going to be faithful and deliver this to you. But from everybody else's perspective, it doesn't look good. Can we get the picture of the chariot? So this is kind of what, just imagine if you're in you're a Hebrew, you're an Israeli foot soldier, and you have to go up against this. This would be pretty intimidating. It's like bringing a slingshot to a gunfight, basically. And so Deborah is called upon at this time to wage war in this situation. And how she responds to it is just profound and amazing. So here's something cool too. So you guys know that Josh is in Israel. So this battle that goes on here in 4 and 5, Judges 4 and 5, is this area is called Mount Tabor, okay? And then there's the valley below. And what's cool is Pastor Josh is in Israel, and he actually took a video of Mount Tabor for us. So roll the film a little bit.
Okay, I am on a very high mountain, and the valley below this valley is where Deborah and Barak defeated their foes, and that mountain across the way, that is where Gilead commissioned his 300 mighty men. But probably more exciting and more important, since we are in the Galilee, this is the purpose. So this is the mountain where they were going to push Jesus off, the cliff that they were going to throw Jesus off, because he read this from the scroll of Isaiah, saying that he was the fulfillment of that prophecy. And the guys didn't like it, so they brought him here, tossed him off this cliff, but then of course he walks through the crowd as if they weren't there. But they weren't tourists.
Okay, we can stop it. Thanks. Anyways, I just thought that was cool because it's not some random video off the internet. It's your pastor who took actual footage for you guys. So I thought that was really cool. Okay, but can we bring the picture up, though, of the... Okay, so that hill there is Mount Tabor. That's where the battle happens. And that whole valley there, that's also where the battle happens. And I just think it's so cool. I'm totally nerding out right now. This is cool. This is like legit stuff. We have a God that's active and real. Like, this stuff didn't happen in fantasy land or fairyland. It happened here. Like, we can go there and take pictures of it. And I just think it's amazing. And that should give us hope that we have a God who's active, and he breaks into human history. And he's like, I will move on your behalf. I will fight for you. I will fight for you, and I will give you victory. But you have to trust me. And so Deborah is faced with this crazy situation. What are the Israelites going to do? I mean, practically, let's be practical here. Let's be honest. If you were leading, put yourself in Deborah's shoes. If you were leading Israel, right, and you'd made it out of the desert, you're a people group, you're in the promised land. You have your foot on the promised land. There's a small problem. Looks like you're going to get your booty handed to you. It's surely going to be a slaughter of the entire nation of Israel. Because you guys have brought a slingshot to a gunfight. What would you do if you were Deborah? Practically. I always said, you know what, let's pack up and get out of here. The desert doesn't look so bad anymore, right? But Deborah, who's also a prophetess, so she is the one that speaks on God's behalf. And she's also called the mother of Israel in Judges 5, which I just love that. I love that combination. She's a kick-butt military leader too, which I love. But she makes a decision and a choice. And you'll have to wait till next week to hear about it. So let me have the band come up, please, and the ushers. I just think it's so cool that, like, this is legit. Like, this is the God we serve. We have a God who has acted through history. And guess what? He's not stopping there. I just want to encourage you guys, because I know some of you are going through some rough stuff. And you feel like you're bringing a slingshot to a gunfight. But I want you to know God doesn't say, good luck, you're on your own. I'll be praying for you. God's like, I will battle on your behalf. I got you. I got your back. And next week we're going to get into how God just does what he does. He makes a giant doorway where there's not even a window for the Israelites. And it's amazing and it's phenomenal. Let's go ahead and bless the offering. Lord, we thank you for your goodness and your presence. And we give this back to you, this offering, Lord. You say, take it and multiply it and let it serve the kingdom. In your name, amen.